Hey, good day, everyone. This is Lowman02. We're going to go through three 100-card singleton matches today. I'll be running three separate decks. The first one will be Green-White Little Kid, which we unfortunately get battered on. The next will be Azorious Control, and the last deck that we run will be Grixis Control. So we'll start off first with our battering delivered by Sensei Rob. So Green-White or Selesnya mid-range, I think you'd want to call it. It's a fine deck, and really it's a meta call. So let's go over the keep in the beginning. So, we have a good mid-range start. We're going to hit all our land drops. We have a Worldly Tutor, so we can kind of get to our higher end in the deck. Keep in mind, we see that he's playing blue, and we're pretty much like, oh no, can never win. So this deck was great against, like mono red or like red deck wins matchups, white weenie matchups. Really, it's just a fair deck at the end of the day, and like its capability to interact is fairly limited. I think where you can kind of get some miles out of a deck like this is through cards like, Eternal Witness, the new Morph Eternal Witness, Duskwatch Recruiter, any of those kind of cards. And like some of the Planeswalkers in the deck will do the same thing, but we really just have a fair hand that's only going to draw one card a turn right now. You look at like some of the cards we have in here, like Ajani, Nissa. Those cards are cards that can beat. I don't want to per se say control because it doesn't like on pure control, but when I see islands, I generally tend to think, all right, they're going to be drawing more cards than I am, and that's something this deck does not want to see. And you'll end up finding that doesn't really work out well for us. So we get 3 visited here, so he's going up on mana. We decide to make him Daze or Bust, play around, Spell Pierce, Force Spike, whatever. Got a bird, so he's going to be up 2 mana on us, which is not something we want to see at this point. He is on some crazy color pie going on over there. Great start, though. Knight of the Reliquary is obviously a very scary card. Tarmogoyf, we have parity with that. But next turn we intend on playing on our Casali Pride Mage. Now, one interesting thing to note is, we probably could have gone a little bigger with our Worldly Tutor as opposed to like the Luxodon Smiter. The way I was kind of looking at it is, all right, he's going to be up on me by 3 to 4 mana the following turn. I need to race. I need to knock this opponent out. I need to knock Sensei Rob out as fast as I possibly can. So that's kind of the rationale behind how we used our Worldly Tutor. We're glad we sacked the Canopy Vista because he takes us off what I think he believes to be fixing at this point. We get a double block, knock out his T-Goy. One thing that was confusing to me is I think with Knight of the Reliquary, I think you chump. I think you save Knight of the Reliquary. I don't know. I guess, he's obviously winning at this point. Knight to me just feels like too powerful a card, and eventually it's going to outgrow my Exalted trigger. If I was calling it Prowess before, I apologize. I think I was. Eventually it's going to outgrow my Exalted trigger. There it would have been 1 short, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't really get throwing that card out. The Goyf, I get it. It's a vanilla card, and we've already got one ourselves. So we're gaining a decent bit of life. We just get attacked in the air here. He continues getting lands, which he keeps on getting, or I think twice he gets lands back with his Nissa, which to me tends to make me think, hey, and I'm sorry, that time he got the Knight, but to me that makes me think, what do you have in your hand? I'm guessing Primeval Titan. We don't really ever see anything like that. It ends up just kind of being like a fair mid-range game, with the exception of him being on blue. So we end up striking in, hoping for the block with the island. We convert the Selfless Spirit into our Archangel Avacyn, the newest one. Give it indestructibility and destroy the island, making the Knight bigger. We see he finds a Caracas. Hey, cool. We'll turn into something else next turn. Ajani's bad news. So that was either a good keep in his hand or a great top deck. But it's good. It's going to wreck us here. We really needed the selection offered by the Fauna Shaman. We kind of get a best force in the form of Scavenging Ooze, which allows us to gain some life and allow us to shrink down his Knight of the Reliquary over the next turn. But with an active Caracas in play, our hand is essentially dead right now. I mean, I guess we can cast it and, get indestructibility value out of it, but his guys are just bigger right now. We start eating his lands to shrink down his Wing Condor Knight, but honestly, at this point, we could probably just throw the towel in because we're not going to beat two planeswalkers in that row of blockers. I mean, right now his capability to block us while he just accrues value turn after turn on his planeswalkers is going to win this game. I play it out though. Sigarda, cool card. We go for the life gain. I think he gets dazed, and I think we concede here. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of over a couple turns prior. I was just playing it out for the lulz. Okay, so the second match, or correction, second game. Fine hand. So what I'm kind of thinking is like he's on counter magic. He's got a Thrun. I can grow my Thrun with Nissa voice of what is it, Zendikar. And I have a Dramoka's command to like get a creature. When I see a true name Nemesis come down, I'm like, well, this game's probably over. And then I see an Edric, and I'm like, yeesh. I'm gonna get beat and buried in card advantage because I can't block that thing ever. We grow both of them. And kind of the idea is on this next turn we can kill his Edric. And this thing just gets countered. Yeah, I get Spell Queller, and we're just like, well, that's probably game. Nissa down, and a Master of the Wild Hunt, which is, probably not good for us. Allows him to go even wider than he already is, and get more cards. So we're kind of in an avalanche of card advantage right now that we have no possible way of getting out of. Now, I think he probably wanted to hit our Tireless Tracker before the turn or the exchange of the turn. Maybe not. I think you probably want to. I mean, I can't do anything here. I have to draw an uncounterable spell. Kind of disappointed with Mirage Guile. Doesn't get me lands. But that is what it is. So that is where I think we throw the towel in, or we're just dead. I think we block it for lulz and we die. So that was our first game against Sensei. We played a secondary game against Sensei on Azorious Control. And actually, before we jump over to that, I can show you the green-white little kid deck first. I don't think I've ever covered that deck. I don't per se think it's a great deck. I think this deck is like a meta call. So really, it's like mono fair. With some of its more unfair cards or like good cards for the deck, being like a Johnny. You have a Garrick, Color Beasts. You got a Woodland Bellower. I mean, this deck doesn't even have like a Primeval Titan in it or any of the really more broken cards that you'll see in green. This doesn't run. It does run a Birthing Pod, so yeah, I guess it has that broken gem. But for the most part, just a fair deck. Big, efficient guys. Can gain a lot of life. Can attack and block very well. And it's a decent, fair deck. A lot of the sideboard is based around beating control-based decks because that's what the deck tends to have difficulty with. But it really can't hate out 3 or 4 color greedy decks the way some other decks can. So what we end up seeing is we just got trounced because this deck has a tough time interacting. The way it interacts is through combat. So I'm not removing creatures with any sort of fidelity. I don't even have in this deck a Swords to Plowshares, a Path to Exile. That's probably wrong, but I mean, it's more of just a casual, just fun deck. All right, so the next one is a little bit less casual. This is an Azorious Control build that we have. And we're playing Sensei again. And I don't quite recall what deck he's on here. We'll see momentarily. We'll play out the Relic because, hey, why not? We don't have anything else to do with our mana. Get duress turn 1, lose our Miscalc. We're down a card. I think we end up cycling off the Relic here after seeing its lands. Or correction, we wait 1 turn. And the reason we wait is we still have a land drop. Play out the High Mark because he already knows about it just to maintain hidden information. Into the Royals live now as his Mana Leak. I believe we see a Finks. We let it resolve. We don't really care about his life total. We're a control deck. Actually, what we intend on doing is into the Royal and this thing just to draw through our deck. We're just trying to look for win cons, really. Counter spells, win cons, anything to buy time and get to a higher land count. This deck, I think, tends to win through like cards like Batterskull, Torrential Gearhulk, the Big Elspeth, stuff like that. Play on our manland, have Restoration Angel up, just in case he decides to get frosty and attacking with the Shambling Vent. And we go ahead and Mana Leak this Cryptic Command. I don't know if that was right, to be honest. I mean, Sin Collector's not going to do it here. I mean, we put on a blocker because he can't even do anything with it. He's tapped down at this point, for lack of better terms. But we kind of land out this game. We attack in with our 2-1. We probably should have attacked in with our 3-1 as well and just traded damage with them. But I mean, I wanted a way to be able to get rid of the Shambling Ven if he went in with it, because I mean, we kind of keep damage parity if he's attacking with that thing. We get Bribery. I don't think it's a great card against this deck, but you know, a 5/6 2-for-1ing me off Bribery is not good. Obviously, as many control decks are, this is a card advantage machine. We end up shipping this because I mean he's got the mana land, so like casting a Wrath for one creature kind of seems like a waste to me. And I could be wrong, but really none of the other cards were even frankly relevant or did anything on the board. We draw Phase Fetters, which, and we get Memory Lapse, and that's game. We go ahead and pack it in after that for the first round of this match. All right, second game, post board. This is a fine hand. It's not the best, but I kind of keep it in the idea that if I hit lands, I feel pretty confident I can win it because he's kind of on like a control deck as well, some version of an Esper control deck. And I tend to think that Geist of Saint Traft can just demolish a deck like what he's running. We end up wastelanding him there, and then we draw Condemn, and our hope is that he'll attack him with the Shambling Vent. I think he assumes we're on counter magic draw. We didn't play our Geist down, take note, and we end up condemning his land, which is awesome. To be able to Stone Rain him at instant speed is a good deal. Play on the Geist, and at this point, after drawing Force of Will, we feel very favored in this match. He plays now, Venser, with the idea to bounce the Oblivion Ring and get his Mother of Runes back, which upon his turn would have protection from the, or would give protection to whatever I tried hitting with the Oblivion Ring, unless it's like a Planeswalker or something. Which I don't think he made that play if he had a Planeswalker, but play on the sort of Fire and Ice. We're going to take 3 a turn. Gideon Jura says, hey, you're going to attack me. We bounce him, draw a card, allowing us to attack him with both and to start the damage train. Now, what we're trying to architect here is we really want to get a turn where we can strike in with the Sword of Fire and Ice and kill our own Academy Rector. I think, honestly, he probably needed to leave back the true name. Well, never mind. Now, I guess he just didn't have a will to do with the sword, so he had to attack with it. We cast on the Back to Basics and just say, hey, if you're not going to run any basic lands, Mono Greedy's going to die here. And his lack of basic lands, I don't even know if he plays any in this deck because he still has a Flooded Strand, which means that he has one land that's live, if you will. Plus, I mean the Watery Grave. And we're fine on 2 lands because we got a counter spell in hand. We have another island in hand. And frankly, we just have a more relevant threat. And this game closes out relatively fast due to that. Little techier play. I mean, after we hit him with the sword, we end up killing our own Rector, but it made sense there, and the game stayed in the way he tapped out. So, Mother of Runes, yet again. Like, yeah. He attacks with her. I don't know. I guess, what am I going to do? Condemn her? If I had it, I would have done it last turn. Fair point. He attacks in, which means obviously he's got a 3 mana play. It's Trinket Mage, probably, I think, fetching a land. I think he fetches the black version of the land, or the black artifact land. Yeah, Vaulted Whispers. I believe we end up playing out our true name here, but I could be wrong. Yeah, and we're just playing it out as a blocker. We just want to buy time. Play on the Academy Rector. He starts pumping up the Hangerback Walker. Kind of what we're trying to do right here is architect a very big Day of Judgment. We're trying to get him to play into it. And he protects his mother. And we end up wrathing the board. Getting a Faith's Fetters with our Rector, stopping the Jace. End up playing out Finks. No counters in his hand. We suspended Ancestral Visions. Pass it back. And kind of wait, and we see a Future Sight, which is a dangerous card, but we see a card like Ranger of Eos, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that fits in the end. I mean, it fits definitely in like white aggro, white weenie, Death and Taxes, maybe. But I don't really see it as an Esper card. Decrypted commands, bouncing, or correction, getting rid of the Jace, or bouncing the Jace back and the face fetters falls off. Play on Elspeth, which, good luck Jace, go Jace. He plays on a Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, gives a +1, +0 token to the board, or +1 on the board, or emblem rather. We continue to play out Elspeth tokens. We eventually lose our Elspeth, but I mean, getting 6 power into play for free, is fine by me. Architect comes down. We kind of were expecting this to happen. He pluses it there, which still gives us the ability to attack in with the Geist. Play on a sword, attach it to one of our 1/1s, now 3/3, to strike into. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we send the angel towards face, and the rest of them, or correction, we send them all at face. We're just trying to end his life total as fast as possible. And actually, no, we didn't. We sent one of them as Jace. We see a Gideon come down here, and we say, okay, well, I guess we're going to take a turn off from beating up on you. Draw a Torrent Gearhulk. And I checked this pretty hard. I guess I could have cast it and, maybe, brainstorm, but, there really wasn't a play with it beforehand. If there had been, a Cryptic Command or something in the graveyard, I would have just bounced the Gideon and just won. We go ahead and Judgment's Council, definitely targeting Future Sight, because if he wants to draw Tassiger, we'll just bounce it. For lulz, he casts the Thoughtseize out, and he dies to his own spell. All right, so game 3. And excuse my voice, folks. Unfortunately, I'm a little under the weather right now. So he cast some other runes. Actually, you know what? Correction. We already played on 3 of these. So we end up taking that match 2-1. The next match is against Sea and Rhythm. And he is on a Jund, a big Jund build, and we are on Grixis. So we don't know what he's on. We're both in the dark when we start this one. We see a Nature's Lore, which we're like, we don't like opponents getting up on lands over us. It tends to limit our ability to react appropriately, or lets them cast multiple spells in a turn when they do. Kessig Wolfrun is also a scary card for this deck because it can make a card as crappy as Imperial Recruiter, a 1/1 body, good. We end up memory lapsing that just to get a little bit of tempo and catch back up on lands, because our hope is that he doesn't run as many lands as we do. I think we're quite wrong about that, though. So we end up getting Flametongue Kavu, which stinks because we wanted to have that Jace resolve. We play out the Obese, and that's my pet name for the Abyss because it tends to eat fat. And it does end up getting a Flametongue here and forces him, well, maybe it doesn't force him, but I expect it forced him not to cast creature spells this turn and instead cast Harmonize, which is still a great play. We get down our Chandra, which is a legit threat, and the reason, we do that is because I don't think Spell Pierce is going to be as live, and I feel like I need to pressure him at this point because he's getting to a point with his land drops that he can cast multiple spells. Now he does find an answer in Reclamation stage, which puts us in kind of a predicament. This is a very close game. I think this is actually this 3 set of games or rounds was really good. We end up keeping Factor Fiction, Goblin Dark Dwellers, because we're trying to hedge against something like this, like Primeval Titan, that we need to cast the Dwellers on to Ghastly Demise. And we're really lamenting that our Abyss got wrecked. We find a Pithing Needle, which is great because it gives us a valid answer to the Kessig Wolfrun. I think Needle's a fine card in this deck. It's a Trinket Mage deck, so it runs Engineered Explosives, Needle, and Seed of the Synod package for Trinket to find. Now he has answers for all of it, which is, it tends to be not good, but we're decent. We played decently well and left our Wasteland untapped so that we could hit his land. We end up using the mana ability off Chandra, find a Wormcoil with our dig with Dak. And he Acidic Slime is almost always a 2-for-1. Here it is not quite, which is awesome. We do find a Toxic Deluge as well. Unfortunately, we exile Torrent Gearhulk, but hey, what are you going to do? We leave them both back. He obviously doesn't draw a creature this turn, or he's really worried about the Chandra Emblem, which is kind of like what the sub-game has been for me, is to protect Chandra to get her to 7 so I can just cast random spells, which this deck is very good at casting, just random nonsense spells to kill him with. So, we end up, getting killing his last land threat, that he had out, and he really evidently doesn't have recourse, or he can't cast additional spells. And we're still at 20 life, so I mean, I feel like I felt like I didn't. There were times in this game I did not feel like I was winning, and I had to definitely get decently lucky. But I don't think this deck is unfavored against Jund. I think where a deck like this, where Grixis control runs into problems, tends to be against really not even extremely aggressive strategies, but like aggressive strategies with reach as well, like red deck wins. I think that's where you run your biggest risk. So we end up keeping this one. We get Inquisition, lose our Preordain, which makes the hand, significantly worse, but we're happy to draw a land off the top, and the Parish feels decent. It feels okay. This is a game that I probably play out longer than I have to. We have Fauna Shaman down now, which debatable. We could have possibly killed it with Dreadbore, but I'm kind of like, Dreadbore does so much against opposing planeswalkers which this deck also has trouble with. But I kind of want to leave it in hand. At this point, we have Mana Leak. I believe we end up getting the Dwarven Miner because we fixed ourselves as far as mana goes, but we don't want to we don't want to lose all our lands. It seems like he's at a point where he would enjoy nothing more than blowing up our lands. We do get a Jason Mind Sculptor bounce his Shaman. He ends up having an answer in Maelstrom Pulse, and also has the land to replay out Fauna Shaman, which we're pretty disappointed in. But what can you do? And we end up plussing a Jace Architect of Thought. He ends up finding Avalanche Riders after dumping Reclamation Sage. Blows up one of our lands. We actually misclick here. And it is a misclick. I fully intended on killing the Shaman. Because I think there's a very low probability he's going to pay for the Avalanche Riders. And unfortunately, he finds his next land drop, because we know we found 2 land drops in a row because he missed 1 land drop off the top, or threw over a turn. He plays on a Grave Titan, which we're like, woof, we're in trouble. Engineer Explosives actually is not terrible here. I do have to blow a Doomblade because of the misplay. Which we'll keep that in mind, because we'll see if it actually did matter over the course of the game. So we end up blowing the explosives here. We get lucky, find an opt. Now, we've spent a couple cards, to kill this thing, but we really can't beat Grave Titan outside of Toxic Deluge or Damnation. Once it's resolved, I mean, we can kill it singularly, but once it makes 8 power and 2/2 tokens, that's tough to deal with. Dust Bowl is really what takes over this game, though. We get Dust Bowled like champs, into oblivion pretty much. Get lucky there, find a land, get the Flame Slash as 1 mana source and birds that, kind of allows him to continue to maintain parity. He finds another land tutor off the top, and we're just getting beat up here. We have to go for the land off the Impulse, which stinks, but and this continues to go on for a bit, and it's not pleasant. We do luckily have a Parish. Now, it's kind of an odd turn. He ends up playing out I think it's Ulvenwald Tracker. I call it Bearman Pig. Yeah, and we dissolve it. And really, it's not a spell I would typically dissolve, but I kind of feel like I need to hit land here. I have a Factor Fiction on top, and I don't even feel comfortable keeping that, because I mean, the Dust Bowl is just going to continue to put me in oblivion. And I feel like my best shot is, kind of at this point, maybe this is not accurate, but I feel like my best shot is I run more lands I expect than he does. And I'm kind of hoping that I can hit a pocket and he continues to Dust Bowl, where eventually he ends up Dust Bowling so hard that it backfires on him and he runs out of land. But it's not going to. When you see Eternal Witnesses coming down, Dryad Arbors coming down, I'm pretty vulnerable to anything. I see a Karn liberated. I do perish here, but I know I'm dead. I know this game's over. And I believe we get Avalanche Rider. And if we don't, we may play this one out to the bitter end. I can't remember. Like I said, we played this a lot longer than we should have. All right, so we find a bunch of lands on top. We just got to get rid of that thing. We can't win around the Dust Bowl. He keeps his Avalanche Riders this game around. Well, I guess he wouldn't have the other time because he was going to cast the Grave Titan regardless. But and 3 visits. We do find a land, and what we're trying to do right now is just get to a point where we can cast the Dark Dwellers. We know this is going to happen right here because we have to play lands out. I mean, there's not much else we can do. We kind of knew he had it. And one thing, folks, for C, just for you, you did a Mototel the turn prior, turn 19. You tapped this one down like you were going to bolt me. But then I think you reconsidered it and saw the Arid Mace I had in play. I deliberately didn't crack it. Maybe I should have just let you bolt me the turn prior and put me out of my darn misery. Um, but you did tap down the Stomping Grounds, and like as soon as you untapped it, it was very rapid. I was like, yeah, you have bolt, or you have like Chain Lightning or something. But I put you on bolt specifically because the Mototel was, when I saw it tap and then untap, I figured, okay, you're trying to play in a way that when I crack my Arid Mesa, you can kill me, which means you're considering using it at instant speed. And it had to be pretty much actual factual bolt. I guess it could have been like, Searing Spear or something like a worse card, but an instant speed way of doing 3 damage because it could do it on 4. And obviously I can't crack the Arid Mesa to find blue mana to stop it with Spell Pierce since it'd be on the stack. So yeah, but we get horribly battered by LD in this one. Avalanche Riders gets 2 of our lands, and then I can't even count how many Dust Bowl got. So Dust Bowl, heck of a card. I think it tends to very much so shine in decks like what C's playing right now as well, because he's kind of playing like a middle of the road between Ramp and Stompy, where he's able to present threats that can kill me relatively quickly, but at the same time, he can also, go over that, but he doesn't have to. So like, if he plays on a couple like small mid-range threats and then just starts dust bowling me away, I'm gonna be pretty helpless to deal with, especially on Grixis, because like, you look at like something like Azorious or like Esper, and they have a lot more 4 mana answers to like a wide board, wrath effects. This deck, doesn't per se, so it has to rely on singular answers a lot more so for creatures, which is tough because you also have to look at like accruing more card advantage through draw and through your planeswalkers in the deck. This is why I think you'll see like this version is more planeswalker heavy, because I think planeswalkers, I mean, if they don't literally draw you cards, tend to provide you with card-like effects, which I think can kind of in a way constitute virtual card advantage. So we're kind of beating up on him here. We thought C's turn 1. We hit his thought C's. See his hand. The scariest stuff is he has the Dust Bowl, so we know to Pitting Needle on it on turn 3, and also leave up mana for our miscalculation, which ends up hitting his Imperial Recruiter, so don't have tutoring for other things. He plays on a Death Right. We're going to let that happen, because right now, really what the name of our game is, after we see that Ugin, is how do we get to 8 lands so we can just, make it so he can never win. We cast the Touring Gearhulk here, cast Factor Fiction. Really, we're just looking to take any land pile, and I think at this point he's going to assume that he's going to put the land in the larger pile, because he probably thinks we already have a land we need. Little as you know, we're trying to go huge on Ugin. We don't get lucky and draw it there, which we're like, whatever. We into the Royal that thing, and then I believe we Inquisition, untap our swamp, just to play around Wasteland. And then we leave up Impulse to find a land. We don't mind leaving Lily in play for a couple turns. He's on less cards than we are. And we're going to build card advantage to a large extent off Ugin. So we figure, why play the Arid Mace out? Yeah, it thins the deck. But, at this point, like, I haven't played my Brainstorm yet. And 2, like, I kind of like 9 better than I like 10. Or, correction, I like 10 better than like 9. We get both the Lily and whatever the card was he had in play. I think it was, the Death Right. With Ugin, he doesn't have a way of dealing with this. Now, we do know his hand at this point because we cast the Inquisition. And I think you could have, because you get the Treetop. Let me count it out real fast. I think you could have activated Treetop tapped, like turned it into a 3/3 Trample Ape with your basic forest and like Black Cleave Cliffs, and then used Firelit Thicket to make 2 green, tap Dust Bowl, tap down essentially to Natural Order. And I don't know if you have an answer with Natural Order. Maybe you have like, I don't know, like Terrastodon or Woodfall Primus. Maybe not. I mean, like your deck looks a little more mid-range to like Stompy merging into Ramp. So maybe you don't have like those huge things. But I know you had Natural Order in hand and you've been waiting on it or playing around like the negate that you knew I had off of my Jace Architect of Thought. So I think all pretty good games in general. I think this last match right here was probably the best of them from a play standpoint and also from like a pairing standpoint. They were very interactive games. I think both like all three of these games were decently close, and even like when we got Grave Titan, we were able to play a decent bit with the deck. Um, this deck has kind of been for me in a lot of ways. I don't know. I don't want to call it a pet deck. I do enjoy Grixis colors a lot, but it's also the color scheme that I've also gotten the worst results out of. I think some of that may have been due to build, so I kind of went back and revisited this control build specifically, and kind of relooked some of the selection that I had in the cards after kind of thinking through, what the deck's plan really was. And we'll see. I may end up running this one back in a 100 card singleton event at some point in time. This is definitely much more of a control version of it. Like I have a couple versions of Grixis. I have a mid range, but I tend to think I like this one probably the best of them all. Because I just think Grixis has a tougher time playing mid range. I think if you're going to play mid range, you have to do Naya, you have to do Jund, Rock, or Junk. I think those are just better mid range colors. They just have more good mid range options available to them. Excuse me. So I don't know if that deck is all that viable competitively. I mean, it's still a fun deck. But I think this one right here is competitive. I think where it is limited and where the board really comes in, and we'll pull the deck up real fast, is in the red deck wins matchup. I think most other matchups, it's not terrible against. It's fine. I think it's a tighter matchup against a lot of things. So I think where a deck like this is limited over like a deck that recently won the Christmas extravaganza is that it doesn't have as many options in the 4 spot or 3 spot that really generate vast card advantage. So I think where you need to do it with a deck like this is through higher use of planeswalkers. Which does run some associated risk with it because you're looking to tap out a little bit more often. That said, I mean this version runs 8 creatures, 39 lands, and then just a whole host of spells. You're really looking at your big options for match removal or just card advantage engines, being the Abyss, being Toxic Deluge, being Damnation, and then just the walkers themselves. All the creatures that are in it are essentially versions of Snapcaster. None of them are as good as Snapcaster, but you have Goblin Dark Dwellers. I guess in some ways this could be better if you have Ancestral Vision in the graveyard. Torrential Gearhulk, and then Snapcaster himself. The only creature we have that doesn't essentially do that, or is just a beater in general, is like Wormcoil Engine. It's just a beater, and it kind of shores up the aggressive matchup. And then Trinket Mage, because it gives you options against opposing planeswalkers with Pithing Needle. It can help you meet your land drop with the Seat of the Synod. Or, against aggressive strategies, it can do a board swipe with Engineered Explosives if they've, if you've been fortunate enough for them to cast a lot of spells that are in the same drop. So this is the deck. One other interesting thing to note, and like this is not going to be complete deck tech on this deck, but we do run Tainted Pact in here. And it's like a small building thing, and most folks probably have heard of doing this, but like if you're running Gifts Ungiven or Tainted Pact or possibly Demonic Consultation, not legal, but if you were running half basics in Snowlands and half basics in standard islands or whatever other lands you're playing, it makes these cards, or makes the cards we just referenced, more viable. So like Tainted Pact in a deck like this, it was borderline, but with only 3 repeats of any one card, it gives us a lot of flexibility to find an answer that we may need, and or once we've gotten to a point where we've controlled the game adequately, allows us to find a win condition. This deck can win through beats. It does have the manland package. It does have the creatures we just showed you, but generally how it tends to win or how it wants to win is through just raw card advantage inevitability. Like cards like Ugin, cards like Karn, um, you know, and these guys vary in matchups. Like Karn, I think is great in. I think Karn is better than Ugin in the control matchup. Um, I think Karn is close on the mid range. Well, I don't know. Like both of them struggle to get. We struggle. The deck struggles to get to a point where they can cast them against aggro. I think Ugin tends to shine better against mid range though, because he's essentially an additional wrath. But like at that expense, it's a lot. One consideration to make, excuse me, that I considered is running the 7 mana colorless wrath. I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but with all the walkers we have in the deck, it wasn't worth it. Um, you know, and I'd be curious to know. Like we do run a couple other wraths. I mean, we have the Deluge, we have the Radiant Flames, just sort of a wrath. It's just more easily castable than something like Slag Storm or the new Exiling one, or the one which name I can't remember, that does 2 damage to everything. It's uncounterable and does 2 damage to all players as well. It's just more castable than those. And then we also have Pyroclasm. So at one point now we had Arc Trail in here, and I think Pyroclasm is just a better card than Arc Trail for this deck because I'm playing two creatures that can die to this. One of them does not stay a creature. The other one, I really don't care about having the creature after it's done what it's supposed to do. That's Snapcaster. Pyroclasm, does everything that Arc Trail does for me, except to hit the opponent's face, which I'm not doing that. Like my cards don't need to hit the opponent's face. Um, you know, and that's actually honestly why. And we may put it back in. I've kind of been debating it, but we actually took out the red blue god, the one that draws you a card or does 3 damage to something, depending if it's spell or land that you draw. So Keranos, I believe is his name. So, interesting deck, and still undergoing some gyrations in build. I think this is a better control deck than it was before after some of the rebuild. I reworked some of the mana base and just reworked some of the card selection. Like took out, I think it was just silly. I don't know why I kept in a card like Pact of Negation in this deck. It just didn't make sense. I think it also ran like a Daze. Didn't really make sense. Because the deck is just so reliant on making its drops, and like, if it lands any of its haymakers and the turn comes back, if it lands any of its haymakers, it's probably going to win. Like, and typically you don't want to be tapped on your turn. The deck doesn't do well with that. Like unlike like an Azorious control, it has a tougher time coming from behind, I think. But I think we've done a good job of kind of like relooking it and putting some tools in there, like Pact, and there may be more that we haven't seen yet. That allow it to do that. So very interesting deck, and I hope you enjoyed the matches, enjoyed the games, and enjoyed any of these decks. Please just let me know, and I'd be definitely more than happy to share the deck list. So and I didn't give my initial spiel. This 100-card singleton. 100-card singleton is played competitively between a small group of folks, a community that's probably 10 to 12 folks. We get together every Saturday on MTGO at 15:30 or 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can register for the event on gatherling.com. It is a player-run event, and I think the prize pool is around 10 or 12 tickets. So it's not a lot, but I think this is a very great form of Magic. So in some ways, the builds are like Commander, but they're not, because you're not galvanized around one card. But in my experience, like I think this is a format that can definitely increase your range of play in both limited and constructed, and really helps you get a solid grasp of valuation of cards over time, because you're looking at a pool that is as wide as Magic's history and as deep as Magic's history, and you have to be able to tell which ones are good and which ones work well together, which is basically like I don't know how many cards there are now in Magic. I mean, it's probably in the close to 100,000. I don't know, but it's essentially playing a cube that deep. So very fun matchup, good folks, and I definitely hope to see you there. Hope you all take care now.